Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud has addressed the United Nations General Assembly on the third day of debates. In his first assembly address as Somalia's head of state, Hassan focused on security issues surrounding the insurgency group Al-Shabaab. He also laid out the country's development blueprint. CCTV's correspondent Li Ling Tan reports.
Addressing the General Assembly, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud condemned the attack on Nairobi's Westgate Mall. Citing the attacks, he warned that the battle against Al-Qaeda and its offshoots, such as Al-Shabaab, are far from over, saying Al-Shabaab is down but not dead, as we've seen in the attack at the Westgate Mall in Kenya.
These brutal terrorist organizations have no mercy to humanity. Wherever they are in Nairobi, and in Mogadishu or elsewhere in the world. But let me reassure you that we will fight and defeat Al-Shabaab in the deserts and in the towns, on digital and on social media. We will fight them on the airwaves and in the newspapers. We challenge them in schools, colleges, universities, and we will overcome them.
To act on this resolve, the President appealed to the international community to redouble efforts to help finish the job, saying that Somali forces, the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, as well as Ethiopia, need help in this fight.
People may ask why Somalia matters at this time, but there is a huge amount at the stakes right now: the future of our country, the security of the region, and the wider world. In particular, the war against Al-Qaeda group in Somalia, and the removal of the piracy stranglehold on the Gulf of Aden and the Indian Ocean is indeed a common challenge to the world.
President Mohamud, who was elected to the presidency in December of last year, began his speech by highlighting that this is the first time Somalia has a functioning government in 22 years. The president also took the opportunity to highlight milestones made in the country, including progress in setting up a stable government and in healthcare and education. He added that the recently announced Vision 2016 initiative will also help to address longer-term challenges such as completing the constitution, establishing a federal system, and preparing the ground for elections. Li Ling Tan, CCTV at the United Nations in New York.
Meanwhile, South Sudan's Vice President James Wani-Iga spoke of improving relations between his country and neighboring Sudan. He said the two countries are on their way to peace and stability since they separated in 2011. Prime Minister from the troubled Central African Republic, Nicholas Tiangay, also addressed the delegates, admitting his country's instability.
Our relationship with Sudan has been a mixture of cooperation and squabbles. Fundamentally, both sides do acknowledge that there is no alternative to lasting peace other than harmony and cooperation, given our shared history. That is why President Kir Mayardit remarkably visited Khartoum early this month and amicably discussed with his counterpart, President Omar Hassan al-Bashir of Sudan. They too agreed to enhance cooperation on all fronts, including allowing unhindered oil flow from South Sudan through Sudan.
La République centrafricaine a connu.
The Central African Republic has been going through cycles of military and political crisis. This has led to many changes in our political regimes. Recurrent crises have created almost constant instability.
Une instabilité quasi permanente qui a entraîné une dégénérescence de l'État.
Well, it's now been confirmed that Sudan has cancelled President al-Bashir's appearance at the General Assembly. UN spokesperson Jerome Bernard says Sudan's Foreign Minister Ali Kati will now address the Assembly on Friday. The Washington Post says the cancellation follows several days of diplomatic efforts by the US to convince Bashir not to come to the United States, warning that it could not guarantee he would not be arrested. Well, for more on President Omar al-Bashir's failure to attend the UN and the protests in Sudan, we're now joined live in studio by His Excellency Ambassador Kamal Ismail Said. He is the Sudanese envoy to Kenya. Welcome to Africa Live.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Now, when we previously spoke to you on Africa Live about President al-Bashir's visit to the UN, you said this would be going ahead. What's changed since then?
What changes? We did not change our plans, and we were waiting for the visa from the United Nations Embassy, from the United States Embassy, but unfortunately they failed to live up with their obligations.
Now, it's understood that those visas should normally be given quite automatically to heads of state. Do you feel that President al-Bashir was targeted in this case?
Yes, it is. It is a matter of fact they should be given or granted automatically, because it was according to the United Nations Charter and the Convention of the hosting country, the United States should avail all facilities in order to make it easy for the delegation to go and attend the meetings and the General Assembly. Nonetheless, it is quite clear that it seems the United States did not live up to its obligations and failed to grant the visa in the proper time.
Now, does this imply that President al-Bashir may limit his foreign visits? Is that the case, or is this specifically about the visa?
Not at all. This is specifically about the visa to the United States, but President Bashir's program and schedule for traveling, engagement in different countries and functions is as usual. And we have make it very clear that the President will continue to perform his duty and his engagements as normal.
Now, moving to developments in Sudan, we've seen protests in recent days around the standard of living or the cost of living by people there. Are you concerned about seeing further protests that mimic those we saw in the Arab world?
No. I'm concerned, but not about like those in the Arab world. These protests are very legitimate, and we said before, or the government has mentioned before, that people have the right to express their ideas, their protection, their protest. They can even demonstrate peacefully. But unfortunately, what had taken place in Khartoum was not a peaceful demonstrations. It started as a peaceful, but it turned out to be a very serious issue of conflict and sabotage and burning and burglary and theft of the banks and the facilities of the individuals and the companies and the government entities. So it became a sort of a sabotage, destructions and terrorism rather than a peaceful demonstrations.
Now, we've also had conflicting numbers coming out about the number of people killed in those protests. What are the figures there? And looking at the violence you've described, are you saying that those killings are then justified?
Yes, they are, but who killed them? Who committed that killing? So far, the official number cited is 27 victims, and maybe even rise more than that. But the question is that who has killed those people? That is now under investigations, and once investigation took place and we come to results, it will be very clear. It will be declared for the whole people who did what.
Ambassador, we're going to have to leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much for your time today. We're speaking there to Ambassador Kamal Ismail Said. He is the Sudanese envoy to Kenya. It's time now for a quick break. When we come back. Victims of Sierra Leone civil war welcome Charles Taylor's 50 years prison sentence, and also heroes from Westgate. We speak to a man who risked his life to rescue scores during the Westgate Mall siege. Welcome back. Now, Interpol has issued a red notice or internationally wanted persons alert for UK national Samantha Luthwaite. This is at the request of Kenyan authorities. British police say the 29-year-old is a possible suspect in the Kenyan wall attack by Islamist extremists from Somalia's Al-Shabaab militia. However, the director of Kenya's Criminal Investigation Department says the red alert is not related to the attack. Luthwaite, also believed to use the alias Natalie Webb, is wanted on charges of being in possession of explosives and conspiracy to commit a felony in December 2011. She's the widow of Jermaine Lindsay, who was involved in the 2005 terror attacks in London. Meanwhile, South African Home Affairs Minister Naledi Pandor said on Thursday authorities would investigate the illegal passport issued to her, which she last used in February 2011. Pandor also said Kenyan's official has officially not contacted South Africa in relation to Luthwaite since the Nairobi mall attack.
The passport itself was genuine, but what the person did was they used the identity of a South African, Faye Webb, in order to acquire a South African passport. There's no association. There's no communication. We've checked with our High Commissioner following what we've seen in the media. Has there been an approach by the Kenyan government? The answer from our High Commissioner is no, and I strenuously, until I have evidence, deny any association with South Africa.
Let's now cross to CCTV's Jane Keogh, who is standing by at Westgate Mall for the latest. Jane, have there been any more developments as the forensic experts carry out their work there?
Well, Famida, we are getting reports that police have actually recovered the vehicle, the car that was used by the terrorists here last Saturday at the Westgate shopping mall, which is just across from where we are. I can actually ask my cameraman, Eric, to try and zoom in to see what's going on inside there. But we are getting reports that police did find that vehicle abandoned within the complex. We are yet to verify the make of the car. We are yet to verify who actually owned the car. But police are saying they're looking into a chain of owners. They believe that the car was actually hired out for this particular purpose. But like you said, that work by forensic experts drawn from the US, the UK, Germany and Canada and their Kenyan counterparts continues here at the Westgate shopping mall. We can't quite tell what's going on inside there because of where we are, but I can tell you that we've spotted movements at the shopping complex. We've seen security officials patrolling the area. We've also seen, I think, what looked like the forensic experts just going inside the shopping mall. Of course, they're digging through the rubble in search of clues, in search of answers, and also in search of bodies which may still be trapped beneath the rubble. We understand 61 people are still missing. This as the country ends its 3 days of mourning. Famida.
Well, Jane, we're going to have to leave it there for the moment. Thanks very much for that update. Jane Keogh speaking to us from Westgate Mall on recent developments in that forensic investigation. Well, hundreds of stories have emerged from Westgate this past week of the terror attack, the fight for survival and of sheer courage. But one man's bravery has captured the hearts of many Kenyans. Well, we hope to bring you that story of a man from Nairobi who was involved in many of those rescues. Moving on to Liberia, more than a decade after he helped rebels go on a murderous rampage in Sierra Leone, Liberia's former President Charles Taylor was convicted and imprisoned on Thursday for 50 years. The appeals chamber of the Special Court for Sierra Leone upheld Taylor's conviction on 11 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity, including terrorism, murder, rape and using child soldiers. Clementine Logan has more.
Charles Taylor was convicted of providing crucial aid to rebels in Sierra Leone during the country's 11-year civil war, which left an estimated 50,000 people dead. Thousands more were left mutilated as rival rebel groups hacked off the limbs of their victims. Edward Conte lost part of his arm when rebels cut it off with an axe. He, like many other victims, is elated by Taylor's conviction.
For 1982, I've left drinking, but today I'm going to take 2 pints. Then, though I don't have a hand, the other hand, to join them to postulates, but I will use my leg to celebrate. No, justice has been done against terrorism. So, I feel happy.
Even though I am disabled, for now I have my freedom. He is in prison and we are free. For that, I am happy.
For many whose lives have been destroyed by their injuries from the war, the punishment doesn't go far enough.
Well, no amount of punishment that they can give to Charles Taylor will make me happy, because that cannot make this hand come back again. It will never happen. I was not born like this. I had this problem since the age of 17, and I still have a long life to go.
However, there are still some Taylor supporters in Liberia who think a prison sentence isn't the answer.
Looking at Taylor going to prison, that can solve our problems. So my message to the international community is to reason, please, let them have him free. Let him come back to his country, and we're warning, let him not take part in politics, but to remain mute and to contribute to the development of the Liberian process.
65-year-old Taylor is the first former head of state to be convicted by an international war crimes court since World War II. For those who supported the process, Thursday's ruling marks a new era of accountability for heads of state. Clementine Logan, CCTV.
Now, for the latest on the story, I'm now joined by our correspondent Natalie Fury, who's in London. Natalie, if sent to the UK, where will Charles Taylor be likely to serve his prison sentence?
Well, I mean, there are a few options. One of them, it seems initially, if he does come to the UK, is Belmarsh, the high security prison in South London. Lots of people that have been involved in terrorism-related incidents have been sent there. Now, the reason he might be sent to a high security prison is because he is considered a risk, because he does have access to funds, and he also has a network of supporters who could help him to escape. Now, he's not likely to suffer an attack from another prisoner, so he won't be held in isolation, but a high security prison is definitely considered to be the case. He may then later be sent to a prison in Norwich. This is in the northeast of England, which is good at dealing with elderly patients. So Charles Taylor is, of course, already 65. This too is also a high security prison. Those are a couple of the options, but of course we don't have any confirmation yet about whether he will come to the UK. Rwanda and Sweden have been told as other options, but if he comes to the UK, those are some of the likely places he may go.
Now, Natalie, if he indeed does serve his sentence in Britain, how long is he expected to spend in prison? Are we looking at that full sentence?
Well, I mean, it's a 50-year prison sentence. It's obviously, he's 65 now, so that prison is definitely a life sentence. Anything that could change the decision in terms of how long he spends in prison will not be looked at by the UK, by the prison service here. It would be looked at by that special court for Sierra Leone. He will be sent, if he is sent to the UK, as part of the UK's commitment to international justice. But all decisions relating to his conviction, relating to his sentence, and how long he serves will be decided at that special court for Sierra Leone. Not likely to be a life sentence, really, because they say he could stay for a lesser time.
All right, thanks very much for that. We're speaking there to Natalie Fury live in London. Well, we've got the latest from Biz coming up in just a moment, including